Thank you for the introduction, and very good morning to all the participants who have joined us for the session today. The objective of my presentation would be to rather share our insights at CII-GBC in working with MSMEs in trying to promote the climate action agenda. Maybe move on to the next slide, please. The next one. Thank you. So just to set the context, climate action is any set of action which has the impact on the triple bottom line. And by triple bottom line, we indicate better economic performance through improved productive use of resources, better environment protection by conserving natural resources and minimizing industry's impact, and also impact on society through social enhancement by providing jobs and protecting the well-being of workers and local communities. So any sort of action which has the impact in all the three elements can be termed as a part of climate action. Next slide, please. Climate action, therefore, since it is a broader and an umbrella term, can be subcategorized into 8 intervention areas. I mean, for an SME who are willing and now looking forward to sort of work on climate action, these are these 8 different areas that they can work on, starting with maybe looking at how they can make their processes more energy efficient, seeing how they can reduce their water consumption, also trying to see if they can implement renewable energy sources and adopt certain solar or wind-based clean energy intake, and then do some GHG emission inventarization. I think in the previous presentation, we were talking about emissions, and therefore now MSMEs have started working on inventarizing their data, seeing which processes or operations of theirs is causing more emissions, and therefore working on it, trying to mitigate it. And then, of course, looking at waste management as a principle as well, trying to see how we can minimize our waste generation, trying to see how we can reuse or recycle our own waste, and in the process also reducing the load on the materials, the raw materials that we need to consume, be it in the form of fuel or materials for our regular production. These can be done with the help of implementing newer technologies, optimizing the capacity or utilizing the capacity to the fullest. And at the end, the green supply chain concept, I think, as an MSME with who to work with their own suppliers, both upstream and downstream, to sort of see how they can make the whole value chain greener. Next slide, please. So as we have categorized these 8 elements of climate action for MSMEs to look into, there are certainly some challenges which we see, which are sort of hindering the acceleration of climate action in MSMEs. And in the interest of time, I've only captured 6 broader challenges, starting with awareness and mindset. I think it is the first and the foremost challenge where we see that the benefits of going green or the benefits of green business are still not really realized by the MSME units. In many cases, maybe it is not being properly communicated through intermediaries like us to the MSMEs. And second, I think we also spoke about the regulatory and the regulation that is getting more stricter in due course. And we have seen, for example, the emission norms getting more stricter. We will certainly see these norms with respect to water consumption, waste generation getting stricter each day. So the foresight in terms of those regulatory risks that might befall, I think that is something which is still a miss. And that is where we need to sort of work actively with all our MSMEs and try to demonstrate the benefit, the business case in going green. Second is sustainability is never the primary concern. For various reasons, MSMEs do not really consider sustainability to be one of the primary concerns. The primary concerns still are around employment, production, etc. But sustainability always takes the back seat. So the point here that I'm trying to make is that sustainability has to become a core element of business decision making. A good example of that could be green procurement policies. I mean, working with some of the SMEs in the past few years, I have seen many SMEs putting out these policy statements where they have made it very clear that whatever procurement that they will do, they will ensure that they are more sustainable in nature, they are more energy efficient in nature. For instance, if any SME wants to procure a new air conditioner, the top management has sort of mandated that they have to go for a BEE 5-star labeled air conditioner only. So these are the decision-making elements where sustainability is now a key factor. And I think this is something we need to sort of propagate and push through. in all the SMEs going forward. Third aspect is lack of institutional support. And of course, when it comes to MSME, there are a lot of support platforms and a lot of schemes for SMEs. But what I'm trying to communicate through this slide is the fact that there is no specific incentive for clean technologies or greener processes being put out. There is no reward or recognition also for certain MSMEs who have gone ahead with certain greener practices. I think that element also we need to sort of bridge. And the fourth one is on the access to affordable clean technology. I think for MSMEs who have embarked on this journey of going green, who have realized the benefits and understood how green business would benefit them, the next step naturally is to sort of go ahead with certain technology enhancements and adoption. But having said that, we also see that some of these clean technologies come at a slightly higher cost. They are not maybe as cheaper and affordable for SMEs as we might like them to be. And therefore, there is a big need to sort of see how we can develop or propel this clean tech market by supporting low cost, innovative technologies and offering them to the MSMEs. And associated to that is the fifth point, where many SMEs who are looking for finance right now, of course, there are many financial instruments. I mean, in general for loans and all of that, but there is very less financial instruments when it comes to clean tech finance, particularly. I mean, there are institutions like SIDBI, but again, the schemes out there are far and few. Considering the scope that we're talking about of 45 million units, I think this is one area where we need to work with the banking sector, try to see how we can mainstream sustainable financing. A good example of this, maybe to illustrate, would be if I am an SME and I'm going for a loan, I'm going to a bank to get a loan for a new energy efficient technology that I have procured or I want to procure. I still have to go through the similar or the regular checks and balances. Now there is no motivation for me to go for a loan. I mean, this is one area where there is huge potential. If we can create those motivators in the banking sector, I think we can really propel this market of clean technologies. And lastly, I think point number 6 is on the promotion as a business strategy. I'm sure there are all the participants who have joined us, some of them being MSMEs, they might have already started and have done a lot of work with respect to green business. But we don't see necessarily all these SMEs using this as a promotional strategy. I mean, see, for instance, if we are working on green business, there is a huge potential in targeting new set of customers who are looking for such SMEs who are greener in nature. But we see that MSMEs really don't see this as a potential, or maybe are not focusing so much on using the green strategy in their marketing concepts and trying to capture new customers. Next slide, please. Coming to the most important point, I think all of you might agree to the fact that MSMEs in general and micro and small industries in particular in that MSME segment are particularly one-man show. We have one single person handling several functional aspects of that organization, right from finance to marketing, sales, production, etc. And to introduce sustainability in the concept, it comes in as an added responsibility. And since it is an added responsibility or an add-on, we see slight resistance towards it. And therefore, that becomes the biggest challenge, in my opinion. And now, although this is the biggest challenge, and having said it, I think if you are able to convince that very person in terms of what are the benefits of green business, how can green business really propel his own business and his own market, I think if we are able to make that person realize the opportunity, the opportunity for climate action is enormous after that. So it's more like a final hurdle. If you are able to cross this last big hurdle, the opportunities are endless. So I just wanted to communicate and drive out this point that in MSMEs, especially when it comes to driving climate agenda, that initial set of meeting, maybe for a week or for even for an hour, where we're meeting the topmost man or the person at the top. If you're able to convince that person on the business opportunity that there is in the green business, I think after that, the activities are all smooth and we can drive out the climate action agenda very smoothly. Next slide, please. So to sort of, I just wanted to introduce some case studies to all of you where some of the SMEs have done some really good work with respect to adopting certain climate action related aspects. Maybe they've done some work with respect to energy efficiency, renewable energy, and so on and so forth. But the important point that I want to drive out here is that all these examples can serve as some ideas or references for all of you to take it back to your own factories. I think that is the larger intention of these 3 or 4 few slides that I'm going to mention. Of course, there are many examples, but in the interest of time, I'm only going to capture some of the crucial ones. Next slide, please. Okay, in any MSME, I think all of you will sort of concur to the fact that when we talk about energy meters, we see that energy meters are largely put at the entrance at the gate. And they are the energy meters, which is the common energy meter put up by the local discom. But when we want to understand and analyze the performance of their equipments, and we want to estimate what is the energy performance of certain equipments, we can't do that because there is no metering systems in place. So I think the principle that we can only say what we can measure, that was truly sort of adopted by this particular MSME based in Maharashtra, who went ahead with not just process level monitoring, but equipment level monitoring, and they put up 14 energy meters. And they covered 100% of their energy consumption. They even captured their office space. The idea was to have the energy management systems put up on a digital platform through an app access, and this helped them in identifying losses with respect to leakages in the system. It also helped them to find out losses with respect to idle running. For instance, one of their shifts used to end at 10 p.m., but they saw that many of their equipments, they were being shut down at 10:15 or 10:10. That is 10 minutes post the completion of the shift. So this was more indicating towards idle operation. And after getting these alerts on these energy management systems that they had put in place, they were able to track them down. They were able to work on it. They were able to shift the operational strategies and work on it. And in the process, they were able to achieve 2 to 5% of reduction in their energy consumption, which was huge for them. Next slide, please. So one is to extract the data. I mean, you have automation in place. We are extracting the data. That is fine. What do we do with the data later on? I mean, what are the interpretations that we need to have? And therefore, when it comes to energy efficiency and energy performance, we all talk about specific energy consumption. The idea that what is our energy consumption with respect to our total production. That is, on the right side of the picture, as you can see, the melting energy, there is a mention of kWh divided by ton. That represents the electrical energy consumed per ton of molten metal that was produced in that process. So I think this is a very simple indicator. I think all of us at MSMEs, in many cases, as long as we are having the electrical energy or energy through fuels, if you're tracking it down, we already have production data. We simply need to divide it. And by that process, we can create this indicator of specific energy consumption. But interestingly, in this slide, as you can see on the left side, what this company was doing is to sort of develop energy scorecards. Now, the way one is to definitely have energy performance indicators like SEC. Second option is to benchmark your own energy performance numbers with your own best numbers. For example, in the entire month, if you had achieved a very high number of energy performance, as a management, you would want your operations to achieve that number day in, day out. What the other strategy that this company, sort of implemented was they enabled their operators. And how did they do it was, they were monitoring the specific energy consumption at each shift. So in a day, they had a couple of shifts. They had morning shift and the evening shift. And in that sense, what they were doing is they were monitoring equipment level energy performance shift wise. What happened due to this is that it instilled a sense of competition within the operators, and the energy efficiency therefore became, or rather got ingrained in the operation workforce, and they sort of always looked at it in terms of running their operations smoothly, running their operations with less defects, and running their operations with least energy efficiency, least energy consumption. I think this also was replicated in many of their other equipments, and the opportunity that they had was enormous. I mean, the results that they got in terms of energy reduction was huge. They were able to save more than 2 to 5%, as I mentioned, through energy management system earlier. In this process, they were able to sort of continuously improve their energy performance in the due course of time. Now, this is something I think all of us can take back to our factories. It does not require any investment. These are some sort of management tools of reporting certain things. And if you are able to put a tab on it, I think this will also result in a huge benefits for us in our factories. Next slide, please.
Akshay, I'd just like to let you know you have about 8 minutes more.
Sure, Shubhangi. I'll try to wrap it up, and yeah, I'll do that. Thank you. Next is recycling. I mean, the case study on wastewater recycling, where this is a case study from a Tirupur-based unit. The intention of this particular sort of intervention was to sort of minimize their wastewater usage. And minimize their freshwater usage by maximizing the recovery from the wastewater. And initially, they were consuming some 900 liters, but after putting the in-house water treatment and effluent treatment devices, they were able to sort of recover 99% from their effluent and sort of have less freshwater consumption. But I think more than that, the benefit that they also had was in terms of their business flexibility. Now, after doing this implementation, they were less dependent on the municipal water. They were less dependent on the external common effluent treatment plant to send them this water back. And by having this flexibility, they were able to ramp up their production as and when they like. So I think it had twofold benefits. One, of course, on the environment, the other on the economic side. So this is the case study from wastewater recycling in Tirupur. Next slide, please. This is another area of intervention, which is on renewable energy. Case study from Tirupur, Erode, of a medium scale unit, which went ahead with 12 megawatt of installation. Interesting thing to note here is they had put up more than what they were able to. They were generating more than what they were actually consuming. And in this process, they were able to do two things. One, of course, they were able to feed the excess into the grid and have some cash inflows through that. Second, during holidays, and especially during the corona crisis when the entire production was down, they were still able to generate electricity and still able to get those cash inflows, whereas some other SMEs were struggling with the production overall. Number three, I think most of all, by going net zero, they made it as a part of their business strategy, and they sort of projected this out because they, being a textile-oriented company with a textile export company with foreign customers, they were able to reach out to them and capture new customers by putting out their green business strategy to them. Next slide, please. Lastly, I would like to focus on the waste and recycling aspect of climate action. I think this is a common, mostly you would find this in many SMEs. In the backyard, we see quite a big junk or a scrapyard, as we call it, where people put anything, right from hazardous to non-hazardous to electronic waste. We just dump it there. But this company, when they went ahead with our Green Co rating system, we sort of suggested them under the process to have certain segregation done on this scrapyard and sort of do waste management, sort of implement 5S, embody 5S in their waste management and control area. And what were the economic gains? First of all, there was no large investment done in this case. It was a part of their maintenance activity. They were able to segregate and put out these sheds and have labeling done. This did two things. They were able to better account for their own waste. For example, later on, they could see there was a box for tools, metallic waste. They were seeing many of their tools being piled up. And once they were seeing the inventory and tools going up, they wanted to analyze what was the cause of it. And once they analyzed the cause of it, they realized why those tools were breaking, and they were able to work on it and therefore prevent those breakaging of tools. And in that process, what happened was, obviously, the benefit came out to them in not spending too much of procuring new and new tools, which initially they were doing because they were really not accounting how many tools were actually getting broken and why they were getting broken. They were not able to realize because everything was coming to a junkyard. This way, at least through better accounting, they were able to analyze where the wastes were coming from, which section was contributing the most, and which section they wanted to act on and therefore improve their own performance. And of course, disposal became much more effective. They were able to create wealth out of the waste through better disposal activities as well. Next slide, please. So just talking about certain external change agents, which I feel are very important to highlight. Next slide. The first one is on the OEMs. I think the original equipment manufacturers are the biggest change agents. This is a case study from Godrej Supplier Cluster Program, where the Godrej works very extensively with their own supplier network to sort of bring out these 5 development programs on 5S, My Machine, quality and productivity improvement. And these are some of the conventional development initiatives, but they have also included, as you can see is highlighted, the green packaging or the green element in their own cluster development roadmap. So they sort of push their own suppliers to adopt certain greener practices. I mean, it starts with a push, But later on, we realized once these SMEs or the supply chain realized the benefits of going green, they adopted voluntarily from their own end. And this is one area where I think all the other OEMs should also adopt. Most of them are. I think this should also be sort of put out in many other OEMs going forward. Next slide, please. The other change agent is the industry association. I mean, in India, as we all know, there are a lot of clusters spread out. All these clusters have some industry association. This is an example of a cluster association based in Tirupur, Tirupur Exporter Association, who sort of joined hands with CII in developing the voluntary green code. The idea of this green code was to come out as a charter where the member SMEs could come up and pledge to reduce their energy consumption, their water consumption, and other areas, and work on the climate action areas that I mentioned earlier. And the idea, the objective was twofold. One, they wanted to reduce the impact from their production on the environment and have some social benefits by employing new, more and more people. And second, they wanted to, of course, boost their exports, because they are the export association. Most of their customers are based in US and Europe. So they wanted to use sustainability as a business strategy and sort of gain new customers. So this is an interesting case study where I think all other industry associations can also replicate, and CI would be happy to help them as well. Next slide, please. So I would like to sort of summarize in this way by saying that green MSME is a transformational journey. It is not a one-step process. There are a few stages that an MSME goes through, starting from awareness, where the awareness is needed in terms of, as I mentioned, about the benefits of green. Second is the MSME starts developing or implementing these technologies due to various motivators, due to their customers, OEMs, etc. And once they put up these technologies and once they realize the benefits, they come into the stage 3, where they gain these benefits in terms of economic returns or even their new customers or business expansion. And after gaining stage 3, they move on to stage 4, where they become the proponents of green business. By proponents, I mean champions of green business. And we have today one of the champions also going to speak post me in the session. The idea here is climate action cannot be done by a handful of people, especially when it comes to MSME sectors. We need to create the islands of excellence. Therefore, we need to create these champions in these clusters who will drive this action all together. And we need more and more hands coming and joining us. And if we can create such champions more and more, I think our progress in climate action can be accelerated. Next slide, please. Lastly, just a food for thought for all of us who have joined us of different backgrounds of this MSME ecosystem. I think there has to be some institutional support. There has to be financial instruments for interest subsidy for promoting clean technologies. There has to be a reward and recognition of MSMEs who are already doing a lot of initiatives on green. Second, as I talked about the cost of innovation and the cost of clean technologies being high, I think there are a lot of homegrown startups and MSMEs which are producing some low-cost, affordable innovations. We really need to matchmake those set of startups with the MSME enterprises and create a whole clean tech value chain. Third, we can introduce new innovative implementation models and schemes like ESCOs, RESCOs, demand aggregation to industry association approach, etc. So we can look on those areas. And finally, I think for SMEs who are looking out for certain roadmaps, they can look at Greenco and other rating systems. And for people who are looking for reward and recognition, they can sign to SBTI's, RE100 and such programs on a world stage. So with this, I would like to end my presentation. If you want more details, you can come up to our website, access those details. And if there are any questions, I will be happy to answer them. Thank you.